good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Match Point. And indeed, we are serving at Match Point here for the men's singles final at the Australian Open, which is coming up in a very, very short while from now. Gives me great pleasure to welcome in our studio our experts, Sanjeev Kasal, and of course, former Davis Cupper, Vishal Uppal. Welcome, gentlemen. And what a mouth-watering prospect this match is. Stay right with us because this, for any tennis lover, is indeed what finals are made of. Roger Federer, arguably one of the all-time greats in the sport, 19 Grand Slam finals titles, and this is his 30th final, as you see the lineup there, up against the number 6 seed Marin Cilic of Croatia. Mouth-watering prospect, and let's quickly show you the profiles of both these players in terms of some of the vital stats. Of course, Roger Federer, everyone knows, age is probably just a number as far as he is concerned. He seems to be getting stronger and stronger, in fact, as time progresses. But he's the number 2 seed, and there you go. 95 career titles, significantly 19 Grand Slams. Head-to-head, interestingly, 8-1 in favor of Roger Federer. Marin Cilic, the only occasion won was in 2014 in the US Open semi-finals. He went on to win. 36 years old, I was talking about the age there, versus 29 for Cilic, and 6'1" versus the tall Cilic at 6'6". So those are the crucial numbers, of course. Head-to-head, significantly, the last 2 times these two met in 2017. Roger Federer won on both those occasions, Vishal, including the Wimbledon final, of course, where Cilic was hampered, of course, with those painful blisters.
Yes, definitely. I think this is the most dangerous match Roger Federer will play in this Australian Open. He knows what Cilic possesses. He knows the weapons and the danger that Cilic possesses. So I think he'll be mentally ready for a battle today. And I think this is going to be a very exciting match because Cilic has all the weapons to hurt Roger Federer. And if Cilic is fighting in, on his serve and that big forehand of his, we could be in for a real humdinger of a match.
And also, of course, Sanjeev, Roger Federer has been in top form. Getting into the finals, hasn't dropped a single set. And that augurs very well for the champion.
Absolutely, just as he did at Wimbledon. Didn't drop a set there. I was actually on centre court with my wife watching Marin get injured, like Vishal was talking about the blisters. It was actually pretty painful as a spectator to watch somebody in the finals being in that state. Roger is the sentimental favorite, no doubt about it. Everybody thinks the odds are in his favor. He should win his 20th. But like Vishal correctly said, if anybody can hurt him, it's Marin. Marin has that big game, that big serve, that big forehand. So both of these are clicking. Roger has a tough match ahead of him. And let's not forget, the last man to beat Roger Federer in a Grand Slam final outside the top 4 was none other than Marin Cilic at the US Open. Semi-finals in straight sets. So do we see a repeat of that? Let's see.
That's a good point to make. And of course, Vishal, that first set is going to be very critical because whoever gets off to a flyer will have a big advantage.
Well, obviously, it's always good to start off in front. Both the players have to stick to their game plan. Of course, both have to play extremely aggressive. Roger, interestingly, will change up a lot of things in the game. He'll use the slice effectively to try and keep the ball low to Cilic because he's a very tall guy. And Cilic, on the other hand, has to make sure his serve is firing on all cylinders. He does not want to give Roger Federer a look into his serve, any opportunities on his service game, because then, once Roger is ahead, he's a pretty fast runner. So I think the start of the match is extremely crucial, also from a standpoint of nerves and who can settle down into a good rhythm early on and fire on their best weapons.
Right, and we were talking about all the titles, of course, that Roger Federer has won, 19 Grand Slams in all. Let's have a quick look at where he's got those 19 Grand Slam titles. 5, of course, at the Australian Open, He's in line for his 6th here. Won at the French Open, and Wimbledon, of course, magical 8 titles there, 5 at the US Open as well. What a great record, 19. The next man in terms of Grand Slam titles, Sanjeev, Rafael Nadal at 16, and then of course Sampras at 14, but Roger way ahead.
Way ahead. And if I may just, Gaurav, take up from what Vishal just said about this match and firing on all cylinders and Roger using the slice and Marin has to serve big and who gets the momentum in the beginning. I want to add that both these players actually, the games they have suit each other. So for Roger, the physical challenge, if people are looking at somebody at 36.5, not getting into a long match, he's got the right man there. Because Marin also goes for short points, simply by virtue of the way he plays. He plays that big serve, that big forehand, but he's not interested in a slugfest from the baseline. So that aspect suits Roger, but at the same time, of course, that big serve and the big forehand could hurt him if Marin is effective on those two.
In fact, talking about the speed of court, and Vishal, we were discussing yesterday, the Australian surface also has been relayed about 3 years back. So it has become much faster, right? And that will suit both these players.
Yes, that of course has added to the fortunes of Roger Federer, the fact that the Australian Open surface has been quickened a little bit and it's playing a lot faster than what we saw maybe 3 years back. And yes, the games work quite well for Roger. He does not want to get into long points physically, and that way Marin is a great challenge for him. But again, the fast nature of the court also suits Marin Cilic very well. Correct. Because that adds a little bit more sting to his serve and to his forehand. So, I think for Cilic to really have success in this match, those two weapons of his have to fire today. He does not have an option, and if they go off a little bit, Roger Federer might run away with this one.
Right. And weren't you saying earlier that the court's faster now?
Yeah, of course.
That only helps Marin.
And Federer perhaps
also. Of
also
course, it helps Federer as well. But
because he doesn't want long rallies.
That big serve, but Federer's not going to serve. He can't serve as big as Marin.
Correct.
He's got great stats on his serves, but if Marin's firing, that's going to be trouble for Roger.
Okay, and talking about Cilic, let's see how his Grand Slam record stacks up there in terms of his career, how he has performed at the Grand Slams. And of course, you will see that one title that he has won, and that was in 2014. There it is, the winner at US Open in 2014. That's the single Grand Slam title. But he has been very consistent right through. And significantly in that 2014 US Open that he won, he defeated Federer. That's his only win over Federer in the semi-finals. So that's Cilic in terms of his Grand Slam record. But he's been there, done that, Vishal. He knows what it is to play in a Grand Slam final. And so he's not overawed by the situation.
Well, he won't be overawed, and definitely very hungry to try and prove another point that Roger Federer is beatable, especially on the biggest stage. So I think Cilic will come out firing. He will not be as nervous because he's already been at this stage. He has experience on how to deal with this sort of a stage. Obviously, like Sanjeev said, Roger Federer will be the sentimental favorite. The crowd will definitely be behind Roger Federer. But then again, Marin will have his own supporters in the crowd, and they will be vociferous. They might be few, but they will be vociferous, and they will get egg Marin Cilic on to make a spectacle of this match. I think that's what the real tennis lovers want.
Yes, everyone will be looking forward here to a long, hard match, and the more money is worth, people would like to see this go all the way, of course, those who are at the stadium, and indeed millions watching on television. Just as an aside on Federer as a person, he's got a great sense of humor, and we were talking about this earlier. These two met each other just by chance in the Maldives in November, and chanced upon each other there and got to know each other as persons, and spent some time in that off-season practicing, just very informally.
Right.
And Federer remarked actually after the semi-finals, the reasons both have made it to the finals is because of that practice in Maldives. But you've interacted with Federer at the Olympics in London. Give us some insights there.
You know, Gaurav, that was one of my best days of my life, if not one of my best tennis days. I was fortunate to spend almost 10 minutes with Roger, and I have to say that I made a faux pas. At the end of the interview, I said, Roger, when are we going to see you in India with Mirka and with your pair of twins? and the faux pas was that I said he had a pair of twins, whereas actually he just had those two girls, those two lovely girls, and he didn't pick it up. Nobody picked it up. It just flew.
But your words were prophetic.
There you are. and now he's got two boys too. So
yes.
It was one of the best experiences. Just talking to him, he was so humble. He spent a few minutes with me, one-on-one, post the match, asked me where I was from, if I played tennis. And I said something to the effect, Roger, I've only been playing for the last 44 years. He said, my God, then you should be thrashing me.
Okay, let's now look at the road to the finals and start with Federer and see how he's got here. As we said, not dropped a single set, and that is really outstanding from the defending champion. Semi-finals, he had, of course, Chung Yeon of South Korea, the 21-year-old sensation of this Australian Open, had to retire, unfortunately, with painful blisters. But there you go, straight sets so far. Vishal, for Roger, looking very, very good. But a quick word there, of course, on Chung. Really an emerging force. Fantastic how he's reached the semi-finals out of nowhere and beat great players like Zverev, Djokovic on the way. What a fantastic prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Hyung Chung play as a 15-year-old in Junior Davis Cup, and he had impressed me then itself. It was a pity that he had to retire because of blisters. Anybody following the Australian Open has seen how much leg work he's put into this tournament. So, you know, the physicality of it all getting the better of him towards the end, which was a pity because everyone was looking forward to an emerging talent going up against one of the legends of the game. But I think for Roger, I think his biggest test so far has been in the match against Berdych, where he was 5-2 down in the first set and then really had to wake up and, you know, get things going. And that's the danger of Roger Federer. You know, once he gets into that flow, once he gets into that rhythm, he's literally unstoppable. So if he gets into that flow early on, we're in for a spectacle from Fed man.
I'm with Vishal on that completely. We're on the same page. In fact, that 5-2, when he was up 5-2 and he had those 2 set points subsequently, I think that was a turning point because Roger was able to handle those 2 set points, equalized, and we know he won the tiebreaker. And he's a great front runner. So having the first set in the bag, even today, is going to make a big difference for both players. Sure. But in Roger's case, I think he would be a lot more aggressive. He would go for his shots a lot more, simply by virtue of the fact that he's got the first set in his bag.
Great, and of course, all the while he makes it look so easy, so fluid in his action. But we'll come back to a little more discussion. Stay right with us. It's time for us to take a very short break. Welcome back to Match Point as we build up towards the men's singles final. And we were talking about the road to the finals. Let's talk about Cilic and how he's got to today's final. And there you go. As you can see, he's had some fairly tough matches, including, of course, the big one in the quarterfinals against the top seed Rafael Nadal. And unfortunately, Nadal having to retire there in the final set when he was down 2-0. But my word, the way that match was going, regardless of the fact that Nadal retired, Vishal, I think Cilic was in superlative form.
Yes, he was. To his credit, he really took the fight to Nadal and he put Nadal under pressure. He did not give Nadal too many free points. You know, the starting of the match wasn't as good for Marin Cilic, but then he really settled in well and, you know, he stuck to his guns. And unfortunately, Nadal had to, you know, retire in the end with an injury. But I think the way Marin was playing, he definitely had Nadal on the run and really he was the firm favorite into that 5th set. I would have loved to see, you know, Nadal carry on through the whole match, but you know, his body didn't allow him to do so. But I think Marin Cilic has come in with a lot of form. The match before Nadal, where he played Carreno Busta, was another humdinger of a match. 3 tie breaks in that match, you know, winning in 4 sets. So I think he's had his fair share of, you know, tough matches. He's battle hardened and he's ready for this challenge today.
In fact, the time it's taken on the road to the finals, the significant stat there is, Sanjeev, is 17 hours for Cilic and just 11 hours for Federer.
Right.
Of course, Cilic has had a 2-day break, but do you think that makes a difference?
It does. I think it helps both players, because for Cilic, having played that long match with Roger, even though they didn't complete the fifth set, it was a grinding match. He had to literally grind it out simply because you play long points with somebody like Rafa. But he's had these 2 days break. In terms of Roger, this is the best setup he could have, because somebody who's at 36 plus, he's looking for short matches. So while Chung was a great newcomer, the find of the season, this first slam, to get him to concede that match at the end of the second set is just good news for Roger. So I think for Roger, is not having dropped a set in this tournament, he couldn't be fresher.
Right.
So
right.
from that point of view, I think it's been good for both players. I don't think neither of them would be coming in fatigued.
Talking about being fresh, Vishal, 36, Roger looks like a spring chicken, right? He's just raring to go and looks fitter and fitter every time. But we were discussing this. He seems to preserve himself very well. He's very smart about managing his schedule. He's not overdoing it. He stays away from the clay court season, for example.
Yes, I think that's one of the things that has rejuvenated Roger Federer. The fact that last year he let go of the clay court season to elongate his career a lot more was one of the wisest decisions he could have taken. I'm pretty sure he will be doing the same this year as well. And you know, like earlier we were talking about numbers and stats, and the old saying that stats reveal less and hide more. Yes. And what the age of 36 doesn't tell you is his fitness level and how he's managed to remain at the peak physically. Of course, the way he plays tennis is so effortless, it's easier on his body. But then again, to, you know, at that age, to be able to grind it out day in and day out against much younger players, you know, is a big credit to Roger Federer and his entire fitness staff.
But if I may, Gaurav, if people think right now that this is the new normal, that Roger 36, look, we can do that, we can take a 6 months break and come back fresh. I don't think that's for everybody. I think Roger is a special athlete. He's somebody who's made differently. He could do this. You saw Djokovic, after 6 months layoff, he wasn't really himself. Yes, he had some elbow pain. It's something very unique to Roger Federer. So I think Roger is not just a phenomenal tennis player, he's just a phenomenal athlete. Yes,
absolutely. And one can go on and on talking about Roger Federer. But that's an interesting point you make, Sanjeev and Vishal. It seems like now becoming a norm in modern tennis, especially men's tennis, that 30 is the new 20. Because interesting stat, again, you see the top 50 players today, 21 of them are 30 or over.
Yeah,
how do you explain this?
That just shows you how the game has evolved over the years. You know, in order to succeed in tennis now, you have to be physically and mentally that much more mature to deal with the rigors of the court. You know, the courts are slower, the balls are heavier, the technology has changed. So a lot has changed in the game for you to find success early on. So when we were playing, if you didn't show promise till the age of 16, 17, you were no good. In today's day and age, you have to start showing that at 22, 23, and maybe by the age of 28, you'll start finding a lot more success. So the game has evolved, the game has changed, and you know, for all the youngsters watching, don't get impatient if you don't get results in junior tennis, and don't give up on yourself too soon, because the longer you can last in this game, the more chances of you succeeding, you know, there are. So I think the nature of the game has changed a lot. The points are definitely longer, more intense. Matches durations are going longer because of the long rallies that are happening. So, you know, all the more, you know, how Roger Federer has reinvented himself by becoming more aggressive, by throwing in the odd serve and volley, by keeping the point short. You know, it just shows
his backhand.
Yeah, it just shows what a great tennis brain he is too.
Sanjeev, that's also good news for club and amateur players like you and me. We can continue playing tennis for many years, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't get a better role model than Roger. But I don't know if Roger's going to be playing till he's 60.
Okay, let's just get back to this match. And interesting now, with about 10 minutes to go, I'm just trying to get into the player's head here and through you, Vishal. 10 minutes to go, how do you think now mentally someone like Federer is preparing for this?
Well, I think by now he's done all his preparation. He's gone through his warm-ups. He's gone through his strategy, what he wants to do against a player like Marin Cilic. And now it's all just about relaxing and keeping your head quite silent and very calm and grounded. He will be firing his legs up, getting his legs ready, and that's one of the ways to get rid of the nervousness also. You know, one of the signs of being nervous is your mouth goes dry, your heart starts pounding, your legs feel heavy, and that's why you see all these players jumping around, bouncing around, because they want the blood flowing in through their legs and through their system. So I think he will be doing what he's done before every single match. There will be nothing different from his perspective. He would have made sure he's eaten well, he's well hydrated, and now it's just about him staying calm and going out there and falling into a silent space mentally, where he can then go and execute what he wants to do in the match.
Interesting you say that, and despite being the 30th Grand Slam final, I'm sure that nervousness is still there. But I think that's important as well, right?
Extremely important, Gaurav. If you are not nervous, it shows you don't care. As a sportsman, any sport, it's not just tennis. Nerves are a part of your makeup if you are a serious competitor. So I think Roger, who's extremely honest and even admitting the nerves he's had in what would seem like insignificant matches in the past. He's talked about matches with players in the as low down as in the 30s and 40s, and he's somehow been troubled by them, and he's admitted that, look, prior to this match, I was nervous. So I think it's how you battle those nerves. You accept the fact that you are going to be nervous. It's just overcoming those nerves, right. Staying in the present, being calm, and as Vishal rightly said, I mean, moving your legs, your arms, getting that blood flow going. So everybody has their own preparation. And in Roger's case, his preparation actually seems the most relaxed because he's got this demeanor which is so cool. And I've marveled at the fact that Roger has this easy attitude which shows that, look, it's just another, I'm playing in the park, I'm just so easy about it. But actually, he is nervous, he cares a whole lot, but his body language is very easy.
And that's, I think, one of the great things about Roger Federer, the champion, that you can so relate to him.
Right.
You know, as a general human being, he feels the nerves like we do. So there's nothing wrong in feeling nervous. And that's what makes him special also, that he's willing to admit that he's not ice cold and steely and he feels no emotion. And, you know, so the fact that he can come out openly and speak about it is, I think, something that the youngsters can really pick up from, that there's nothing wrong in being nervous. You just have to learn how to deal with those nerves and do what you have to do to prepare yourself and get into the match as soon as possible.
Okay,
right.
Before we go to Melbourne, I want to put both of you gentlemen in the spot here. And very quickly, Sanjeev, your prediction on this one.
It would be very safe for me to say Roger, so I'd have to go with Roger Federer.
And what score?
4 sets.
Okay.
Well, I've always been a Roger Federer fan, and in this case, you know, my heart and my head both say Roger Federer in 3 or 4 close sets.
Great. So
can I just come in here? See, Gaurav, as much as we both are in that Swiss camp, I think I'm also open to the fact that Roger's reign is going to come to an end at some point. And there's no nicer guy out there in the locker room, very friendly with the drivers who take him from the hotel for his practice sessions, extremely popular on tour. If Marin Cilic was to win, I'm fine with that, because at some point, Roger Federer has to lose. I know it's tough for that to happen in a Grand Slam final if he's won 6 matches, but if he has to, so be it.
All right, great. So our experts seem to be unanimous that Roger starts favourite here. So am I, in fact. But it should be a humdinger of a final. The stage is all set then as we go across now and join live action in Melbourne.